Welcome to Home Tiny Lab. My name is Christoph, and in this video we are going to install OPNsense firewall on a virtual machine. Before installing OPNsense on a virtual machine, I will give a brief overview of the environment. So I have a cable modem, and on that cable modem I have directly connected NanoPi Neo 3. That's the only device in my network that's running 24/7. Further on, I have as main network device a MikroTik router, well known in the OMLab community. And on that router, everything is connected with a 10 gig link to my lab computers. First of all, I have a hypervisor that's running XCP-ng, Ubuntu Mate workstation. And my storage device of choice is a TrueNAS Core NAS, and then I have a Windows workstation. The main goal for me personally is to have a firewall on my network so that I can do a separation from my lab environment to the main network. To begin the installation of OPNsense on a virtual machine, there are some steps that we have to do. First, we need the good ISO to install OPNsense. Then we have to create a virtual machine that we can use to install OPNsense on. Then we can start the installation from the ISO. Then we will have to configure OPNsense and the virtual machine and the hypervisor XCP-ng to make it usable for my particular case. And then we have to do some testing to see if everything's working. First, you will have to download the ISO to use as a media to install the virtual machine. To get it, you will have to click here on download. Then the architecture is already the good one. Here, VJ, that's not correct. You have to select DVD. And then the mirror location will be adapted from where you are accessing the OPNsense webpage. Then you click on the download button and the ISO will be placed in your download folder. So if you are in your download folder, so for me it's on a Windows workstation, then this is the file that you will have, or with a more recent version number. This file you have to extract. When you have done this, you will have a folder with the ISO in it. So if you click on this folder, here you have the ISO. This is the ISO that I'm going to upload, or is already uploaded in my case, to my ISO library. The first step to do is to create the virtual machine now. There is an whole section in the XCP-ng documentation where they tell you what to do for pfSense OPNsense virtual machines. You can follow this and you will get a really good result, or you can follow my video further on and it will give you almost the same result. One of the important things that we will cover is creation of the virtual machine. We will install the guest utilities, but not in the way that's described here. And then very important is to disable the checksum offload. And I am going to use Xenorchestra for doing this. So if you don't are a user of Xenorchestra, there is also the explanation to do it with the CLI. So, but let's start now creating the virtual machine. To create a virtual machine in Xenorchestra, when you're at the main page, so in the home section, you can simply create on the new VM green button. Then you will have to select your pool where you want to install the XCP, the virtual machine on. Then select the template. Here we are going to choose other templates, so other install media. The name will be YouTube OPNsense demo. Description firewall OPNsense. We are going to give 4 virtual CPUs. The reason that I am giving 4 that is because with 2 I will bottleneck file transfer on CPU level. For memory, I had enough with 2 gigabytes until now. And for the ISO, here you have to select the latest version of OPNsense that we have downloaded, and this is the 23.7 when I was making this video. Mac, we will let it automatically generate. For the network, we have to choose ETH1. So in my machine, I have 3 network interfaces, and only one is connected to my switch. And this is the 10 gig ETH1 interface. We will have to add 1 disk, not on local storage. I am using only shared storage for my virtual machines, and it is a NFS share, so thin provisioning. Okay, the name, I will keep it like it is, and then the size 100 gigabytes. Within provisioning, not too much to worry on that side. And then let's create the virtual machine. It will start automatically, so it will boot from the ISO. If we go to console, we will see that the OPNsense installation will start. So the installation is not starting right out of the box. You will have to log in with a certain account. I think that the account is named installer and the standard password is OPNsense. Now that the virtual machine is booted completely from the OPNsense ISO, we can now start the installation. So to do this, first we have to log in with installer. It's marked here on the screen. So installer, enter, and the password is OPNsense and enter. Now I can select the keyboard. In my case, it's Belgium, and let's continue with this selection. I am going to use the first filing system that's proposed, UFS. So, okay. There is only 1 disk of 100 gigs. That's the one that I've created. So the virtual disk for the virtual machine. So let's enter. The recommended swap partition of 8 gig is enough. So yes, and here I am selecting yes and pressing enter, and now it will continue with the installation. Okay, this is now the good moment to set your root password. So press enter and then type your very original password in. So the password is set, and let's complete the installation now. Selecting complete install and then enter, and the system will reboot in 5 seconds. And I am going to eject the ISO, and let's wait until the reboot has finished. So the system booted successfully, and now I have to log in. But first, before we continue, you will see that he has configured on my NIC the LAN part of the network for the firewall, and he has configured already with an IP address. Okay, this is something that we are going to change. So first we are going to log in with the root account and the password that we changed when we were installing OPNsense. If you didn't changed the password, the default is OPNsense. I want to change now the network address of my LAN, and for this I'm going to select 2, and 2 is set interface IP address. Configure IP4 address LAN interface with DHCP, yes. No DHCP6. Press enter if none value has to be entered. And for the graphical user interface, default value is good, that's no. Do you want to generate a new self-signed web graphical user interface? No certificate. And restore the graphical user interface access defaults? No. Now configuring the LAN interface, and we don't see the correct interface yet. We have to reboot the virtual machine for this. To reboot, it is number 6, and yes to reboot. Okay, so we received now a DHCP address from my main network. So this comes from the router from my internet provider. So this IP address I'm going to use to connect to the graphical user interface of OPNsense. I have entered the IP address of the OPNsense graphical user interface. Because it's a self-signed certificate, I have to click on some links and continue to go to the web service and then again log in with the credentials that we have already used. So username root and then the password that we have entered. Okay, second attempt. We are logged on. If you didn't change the root password, you can do this in the lobby, and here with password you can enter the menu to change the password. The first thing that I want to do is to update the firmware of OPNsense. So we go to System, to Firmware, and then we go to Status. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And the first page of status is to check for updates. So let's click on this. And now it's checking if there is a new version or other downloads to do. There is a new version. So we are going to update to that version. So now we are put in the updates section. And if you go completely at the end of that page, you have a button to update. So let's click on update and the firewall will reboot directly after this firmware update. So let's click OK and let's finish this process and I will be back when the system is rebooted completely. The upgrade has finished and your device is being rebooted at the moment. So we still have to wait for a little moment and when the system is back we can continue. Okay, when the reboot is done, you are presented again to log in. So we know the credentials already, root and then the password. And now we are logged in again. The next step is to install now the guest utilities for Xen. Let's go back to System, again to Firmware, going to Status. And let's check that we have the latest version running for the moment. So check for updates. Okay, we are presented with a nice message. There are no updates available on the selected mirror. So let's close this window and let's go to plugins. If I type Xen in the box up, I am getting OS Xen, Xen guest utilities. Type on the plus sign to install. And it is installing. And there's nothing to do. Now Xen utilities are installed. So let's go to the next item that we have to cover. So now we have to look to the interfaces and we can select the LAN. This is the only interface for the moment that is configured. It is enabled and let's click on prevent interface removal. So if you want to have a fixed IP also for your LAN, this is the place where you can change this. So I will configure a fixed LAN for the network that I will add. This will cover also if you want to put here a static IP. So this is good. Once you have made some changes, don't forget to save. And then you have to apply changes. So the following step that we will have to do is to add a secondary network interface to OPNsense. We are not going to create VLANs in OPNsense. We are going to do this at the level of the hypervisor. So in XCP-ng they document this. So we will have a look. Here in the XCP-ng documentation, in networking, they explain a little bit the concepts of VLANs. And they show where you can create a VLAN and add it to physical network interface. This is something that we are going to do now. So we are going to our XCP-ng environment and we are going to new network. So we have to select the pool, but because we have only one hypervisor in the pool, it's the same thing. It's a one-to-one relation. Here we have to select the interface. Remember, there is only one interface active and that was ETH1. We will give it a name and the name is going to be YouTube demo VLAN. Description, secondary network interface for OPNsense. The VLAN that we are going to give it is 20 and all the other things are the default value. Behind my face there is the create network. I'm going to click on this and now I have my network created. The YouTube demo VLAN is my secondary network interface for OPNsense. We have created the interface, but our virtual machine doesn't know that it exists. So let's go to VMs, select the OPNsense virtual machine, going to network. There we can now click on new device and we will find now the YouTube demo VLAN. Let's click on this and let's create. And the secondary interface is now present for the virtual machine. If you remember, there was something in the doc mentioned, and that was the TX checksum offload to disable it. And to disable it, you have the little wheel here, and then click on this again, and then click on this. The two TX checksums are disabled now for every network interface. Okay, now we have to continue the configuration in OPNsense. So if we go now to assignments, we will see that there is a new device present, and it's XN1. Let's add this, and now you will see interface OPT1 what's corresponding with our VLAN 20. I am going to change this. I'm going to make here VLAN 20. I will enable the interface, very important, and I will prevent interface removal. And I'm going to configure now also the network environment behind that interface. I'm going to define a static IP, MAC address, okay. We're leaving this to the system, and here I have to enter the IP address. I'm going to use a 10.0.20 and 0. I'm going to take 24 subnet, upstream gateway auto detect, and let's click on save. The following input errors: the IP4 address is the network address and cannot be used. So I made a mistake somewhere. Okay, network address by 0, it's network. I have to put 1 here, the first IP that can be used by a host. So let's click on save. So the VLAN 20 configuration has been changed. Okay, apply changes. So now we have a secondary interface present. So we have interfaces LAN and VLAN 20 that are configured. The next thing that I want to do is to go to the firewall rules, and that's here, and let's select LAN, and we see here IP6 rules. I'm not using IP6, so I'm going to kick it out. So this is deleted, and I will apply changes. If you want to use IP6, then you will make rules corresponding to that and leave that in. Then for VLAN 20, let's check this. There are no rules present, so normally no traffic is possible from the VLAN 20 network to the other networks. In our case, other networks is network LAN. The next thing to do is now to configure the DHCP so that addresses are distributed for the VLAN 20 network. We go to services, DHCP4, VLAN 20, and enable DHCP server on the VLAN 20 interface. We have the subnet mask, and let's give now the range of IP addresses that may be distributed, and I'm beginning from 100 to 200. So 100 addresses can be distributed for this network. So the maximum ranges normally is here, available range from 1, but 1 not possible because it's the interface of the firewall, and here you can go to 254. So you would set this to 2 and this to 254 to have the maximum hosts possible. I'm already going to enter the DNS server that's configured on my network. Gateway, if you leave this blank, it's the default gateway is that of the firewall. So it will be 10.0.20.1. All the other things I'm going to leave it as default, and let's click on save. And then we will have nothing to do but to check that the service is now running. So normally addresses are given to clients on the VLAN 20 network. For the moment, I don't have any clients on that network. Let's create one. For this, I am going back to is an orchestra. Let's go to VMs and let's see if there here we have Rocky Linux _ VLAN 20. Let's have a look at that virtual machine. Let's see in which network it is placed. It is placed in the normal network. So if I am booting this virtual machine, it will receive an IP address in the 192 range. So let's test this and let's wait until it's booted up. So the virtual machine is running. Let's log in as root. Login incorrect. Let's try this again. Let's verify in which IP address has been obtained by the virtual machine, and it is in my main network. So let's change now the virtual machine from network. So here we see network. So let's click on this and let's go to the YouTube demo VLAN. And if I'm going back to the console, clear this and let's look again. And now we have IP address in the 10.0.20 subnet. We have now a virtual machine in another network and it can only communicate with machines in that network. So let's do a ping to the gateway. If I remember this correctly, this was 1. And like we see, there is no traffic possible for the moment. So let's stop the ping and now let's fine tune a little bit the rules. So I'm going to keep this really simple because I am new to OPNsense. Let's go to the firewall rules and go to VLAN 20. So no VLAN 20 rules are currently defined. All incoming connection on this interface will be blocked until you add a pause rule. So let's add a pause rule. Let's click on the plus and action is pause. Interface VLAN 20 indirection. Let's take everything. Protocol any source. Let's say that the source is the VLAN 20 net. Destination any. Here from any. Let's click on log packets. So if we have to do some possible troubleshooting, it's best to click on log packets that are handled by this rule so that we can check if something is wrong or not. If you are fine with what you have done, you can disable this. So let's click on save. And now we have a rule that has been added. We have to apply changes if we want the rule to be in effect. And let's go back now to our virtual machine. So a ping to the gateway was not possible. Now it's possible. So because I have opened all traffic to all networks, if I would now try to ping to something on the internet, it works also. So from my VLAN that I've created, I can go to the internet and I normally can go to systems on my main network. So if I would try to ping, for instance, the DNS server that I have configured, I can obtain it. If I can ping to the DNS server, in theory, I can do a ping to a name also. This works. So here we have again my overview. So I want to put my workstation in VLAN 20. So I have opened a DOSBox and now I am going to check my network configuration and I have an IP address in my main network. What I'm going to do will be a little bit different depending on the driver of your network card. VLANs is not always at the same place. So for example, I'm going to open network settings. So if you are in your NIC's properties, you will see here the name of the adapter or the type of adapter that I am using in my workstation. And if you go to configure and you go to advanced, you will see a list of things that you can tune or change the parameters for. For some devices you will find VLAN ID in the list and there you can put, in my case, 20 in. But for this network card there is a utility that Intel provides and I will show it with that utility. So let's leave this, and this is now my actual IP address that I'm using. We are going to change this now. I have opened the ProSet application and here you see teaming and VLANs in the tab. So this is typically for my network cards and probably other Intel network cards. And in the VLAN section, if you click on new and you set VLAN ID 20 and create VLAN, so the VLAN is created. And let's redo a check now. We have no IP address for the moment. And now it is. The secondary IP in the range that I have got is the 101. So now I have also my workstation in my home lab. This means that I can normally ping the 10.0.20 100, which was the virtual machine on my XCP-ng. So I can access it. So if I would now change the rules that only those can communicate between each other, I can now build out a test environment for certain purposes. Okay, this was it for me for OPNsense as a virtual machine on XCP-ng. I hope that this was useful for some home labbers to start with firewalling and to experiment with different network configurations. And I hope to see you in the next one.